and welcome to Classic Gamer 74. I am your host there, Red the Fox, and today we're going to be talking about some handheld games. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you guys about the contest we're having here on Classic Gamer 74. In order to enter it, all you got to do is go to two of our videos. I'll list them at the end of the episode there. It's the one of Born to Raise Hell by Motorhead, and the one where we have the Intellivision tribute, playing that song Dust on the Bottle there. You have to just name all the games in the episodes and then send them to us somehow, our social media, something like that. And if you're, and then we'll put the names in a hat there, and the winner will get themselves a $50 Visa gift card. Yep. And second place will win Anthony's book, an autographed copy, of course. So, something to think about. And just check out them videos there. Now, back when I was a boy, a trip to Grandma's house or a vacation could be a lesson in boredom. Yep. You young folks don't know how lucky I got it. Today with the phones, and you got the games on the phones and all that good stuff, and then you can charge your phones. Sometimes you got that thing in the back of the car where you can charge up the phones. Back when I was a boy, the entertainment was listening to the radio, hoping that your parents would play a CD or a cassette, or whatever that you wanted to listen to. Most of the time they wouldn't. And if you were lucky, you got yourself a handheld game of some kind. And that's what we're going to talk about today, are some of them great handheld games from back when I was a young lad. So, without further ado, let's get into them. Now, in the days before you had the Game Boy, you only were able to have one game at a time, unless you happened to have parents that bought multiple ones at Christmas or something. And thank goodness I kind of missed out on them Tiger games. Ooh, I tell you what, them weren't very good. Regardless, my favorite game that I had as a young boy was Electronic Quarterback by Coleco. So we'll talk about that one first.
Okay, so as you can see, this is set up pretty much like a regular football game. You have the quarterback, which is you. You got your two blockers. Now, you have the ability to either run the ball or you can pass. I'll be honest with you, though, passing sometimes is not a good idea because 9 times out of 10, at least when I played it, I got interception. But it runs just like a real football game. You got 4 quarters, you got downs, all that good stuff. And after your 4th down, you can pass it to your friend and you can both play it, or you can play by yourself, which I had to do a lot as a kid. I'll tell you, hours and hours of fun I had playing this game. I would say actually probably years of fun playing it. It's really cool when you get a touchdown or when you get a field goal. Just a really fun game, and it's been emulated or duplicated lots of times. What you're looking at here actually is it being emulated on MES. Now, if you're not familiar with MES, it's a great emulator, and you got stuff on there that you really would be surprised that they got the ability to emulate. So check them out. Okay, next up we're going to look at the game company Tomi. Now, they're still around to this day, believe it or not. They secured a license to some pretty cool games, and they made their own handheld versions. And then they had some of their own. What you're looking at right here is their game called Breakup. Yeah, I think you can figure out what this is supposed to be a handheld version of. I'm just glad they didn't get sued, I tell you what. Now, if you weren't around back in the early 80s, you probably don't know much about the movie Tron, or you might not know how big an effect it had on popular culture. Oh, yeah, now, Tron was a cool movie, a futuristic movie. It's kind of a long story to get into, and Anthony says he's going to do an episode later on where he talks about all the Tron games, but I decided to slip this one in. Okay, so Tomi got... or they called it Tomitronic, I should say, got their own Tron game that they made here. It's kind of like you're driving that cycle around and you're trying to, get the other guy to run into the line you leave behind. It's a pretty cool game there. A lot of fun, really high paced. I think there may actually be a second game on it, but I couldn't get past this one to figure out. If any of you did, let me know about it in the comments section below. In 1981, Tomi was able to get the license to have their own handheld version of PacMan, which back in those days was pretty much a license to print your own money, I tell you what. Now, this version of Pac-Man isn't quite bad, but to be honest with you, it kind of reminds me a little bit more of Casey Munchkin, because I think with technology being the way it was back then, you couldn't have a whole bunch of dots for a little Pac-Man to eat. Honestly, it was a lot of fun to play this, and I tell you, I just kept going over and over and playing it. It honestly was not the worst port of Pac-Man I've ever seen, and I think y'all pretty much know which one I think that one is. Now, if you never played the arcade game Scramble, you're missing out on a good time. Now, Tomi was able to get the license to make this game, and man, talk about a great job. I tell you, this game is just so much fun. I honestly, out of all the games on here, this has got to be at least in the top 5 because they just did a tremendous job with this. Now, in this game, Scramble, you're blowing up stuff, you're dropping bombs, and trying to pick up fuel, and it's just a side-scrolling shooting space shooter game, and hours of fun had by all. Now, of course, there were other cool handheld games made by Tomi, but the last one we're going to talk about today is this one called Caveman from 1983. What you're doing here is you're this little caveman and you're trying to steal these eggs from this dinosaur. Of course, she's not just going to let you take them. You got to throw them tomahawk things at them, and you got to grab them and then bring them back. And it's really a lot of fun, and really kind of, I mean, it's just a goofy kind of game there, but something, of course, probably in real life you'd have never done. Like I said, there's other cool games out there by Tomi, but this will conclude our list of the Tomi games for now. Now, before we get back to the arcade action or the typical video games that you had in a handhold, let's go ahead and take a break and talk about the edutainment games there. The first one I'm going to talk about came out in 1976, and that was The Little Professor. You're looking at him right there. Now, what The Little Professor did was it gave you some math type questions. It mostly was geared towards kids between the ages of 5 and 9. You had multiplication, subtraction, addition, and division. I think I said all of them. Anyway, really kind of a cool game, and it came with a book so that you could actually play other type games with The Little Professor. I believe they're still around today. If you got a little kid in your life, go out and get them one. Besides making The Little Professor, Texas Instruments probably is most well known for the speak learning games. And none of these are probably remembered more or remembered most than Speak and Spell. The Speak and Spell had different games on it that would help a kid learn how to spell words. Now, actually, what was kind of cool is it had a digitized voice that would guide you along. And even for that time period, being in the late 70s into the 80s, the voice was actually pretty clear. So give a quick listen here to what one of the games was like.
Spell range. R-A-I-N. Wrong. Try again. Range. R-A-G-R-A-N-G-E. That is correct. Now spell fired. F-I-R-E-D. You are correct.
With the success of the Speak and Spell, they came out with two other games. One was the Speak and Math that you're looking at right here, and then you had the Speak and Read. They worked on the same concept as the Speak and Spell did. Of course, the one was teaching you math problems, and this one was helping you with reading. Now, the difficulty could be adjusted for the particular child. So let's give a listen so you can hear what these things sounded like.
2 plus 8 is what? That's right. Try. 5 plus 5 is what? That's correct. Now, zap the word colors. You're right. Colors is the answer.
There were also extra add-on modules that parents could put into these things that would add on more words and more problems. So the things were always expandable. As a kid myself playing these, I don't remember a lot of times them coming up with the same words over and over again. In recent years, these things have been brought back. So if you're thinking about getting these for a young child in your life, I highly recommend it. If you play with these when you were young, let me know what your experiences were in the comment section below. In the early 80s, Coleco were able to secure the licenses to a lot of arcade games, and they came up with these tabletop arcade machines. Now, these were really cool back in the day. A lot of people I knew had them, and I myself had the Donkey Kong one, but unfortunately, these days they've kind of become extremely collectible and very expensive. But regardless, the games themselves kind of varied in quality as to how close they were to the arcade or not. But anyway, let me show them to you, and you be the judge of whether you think they were pretty good or not. Now, Parker Brothers is a game company that many of you are familiar with, and they did license some arcade games back in the 80s. One of them was Popeye, and this is the tabletop version of that game. It's a little different than the arcade, but it's still pretty cool. And finally, we have Cubert. This was another one that Parker Brothers was able to get the licensing for, and they had their own tabletop game. Now, nowadays, these tabletop arcade games are extremely valuable, and they go for a lot of money, even if they don't work. But you can play them in emulation. All of these that you're looking at here, I either played on MES or in MAME. So if you're familiar with those two emulators and you like to relive some of those memories and not have to break the bank, here's your chance. Now, the last thing I'd like to talk about today is this pretty cool toy Anthony and I discovered lately. Now, those of you that are our age, you probably already knew about this, but in case you didn't, this is the 2XL. This is a cute little robot toy, and you would play 8-track cassettes on it. Yep, remember those things? And it would ask you some questions about different subjects depending on what the cassette said, and you would push a particular button to answer that question. Now, Anthony and I are planning on getting one of these someday, but if you can look here, you can see there's a variety of different 8-track cassettes that they put out for this sucker back in the day. So we're going to do a quick demonstration here on this website that is an emulator for the 2XL. When we get ourselves a real one, we'll be sure to demonstrate it for you. So check this out.
Okay, we now can begin. Here is the program for children who can read. For this program, please remember to only choose answers after I say the word now. And if you do not know an answer, guess at it. I do not care. I'd like to begin by giving you a little joke. How can you always tell when a choo-choo train has left the station? It leaves its tracks behind. Sorry, let's get to question 1. Name a TV show about a dog. Here are 3 choices. A. Popeye. B. Sesame Street. Or C. Lassie. Answer A, B, or C now. Lassie was here, she would probably say, "Woof, woof, you are right." You happen to be right. Lassie is a TV show about a dog.
Well, that brings us to the end of an episode of Classic Gamer 74. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. If you did, let me know by smashing that like button there and subscribe if you haven't already. So next week, Mumford's got his episode, and I think he's going to talk about Pong and the Magnavox Odyssey. Oh boy. Well, I hope y'all survive it. Don't forget about the contest, and until next time, this has been Red the Fox. Be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other. Be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kind. See you soon. Bye-bye.